Welcome to Wake Up with Nubian Tigresses Talk. This episode is a conclusion of the Nubian Tigresses discussion about the 2020 presidential election, featuring Princeton alumni from the class of 1975, Debbie Jordan, Ann Herring, Marcia Gonzales-Kimbrough, Theresa Brown, and Dr. Katrina Peters.
Of course, it's so enjoyable to talk to everybody, but we got to get to the important question. What's your view on what's happening now? Where were you when you heard the announcement that Biden had reached the 270 votes?
And how much alcohol did you consume in that week?
Right, that he was going to be the presumptive president-elect. So just curious to hear where you were, what you felt, and where you are now watching the ongoing efforts to overturn the actual election results.
Well, I was at home. It was a Saturday morning. I was watching my Westerns on MeTV, and one of my girlfriends called me and said, "Turn on the news. Pennsylvania came through." I was ecstatic. One of the fears I had was during the first Trump election, I sat up all night and I had a feeling before the election that things were not going to go for Hillary. I don't know what it was, but just the mood of people around me. I just had a feeling that Hillary wasn't going to win. And as I watched the news that night, and she started off ahead in the electoral votes, and then it started to slowly change. And as it slowly started to change, of course, most people on the Eastern time zone were in bed already. But I sat there and watched the news until, I don't know, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning as I watched him get these electoral votes. So I know, Michelle, you told us to go to bed on election night, and I stayed up. I probably stayed up till about 3 or 4, which is probably my normal bedtime anyway. And I was just on pins and needles because things were frozen. Nothing was moving. And I was so afraid it was going to be a repeat of the other election, and basically went to bed worrying because I just couldn't see how we could do another 4 years. And as I watched the votes during the rest of the week and the numbers slowly coming in, I thought there was a glimmer of hope that Biden was going to pull this off. And I was so happy when I saw Philadelphia and Pennsylvania come through. Did I have champagne that day? I think I did.
And you probably put on McFadden and Whitehead. Ain't no stopping us now, right?
No, I had a couple of glasses of champagne because we had a Zoom meeting that day, I believe.
Yeah, we did.
So yes, so I did have some champagne, and I rarely drink, especially drinking alone is no fun. But so that being out the way, I said, okay, we've crossed the first hurdle. What's been going on since is absolutely ridiculous. And I blame the Republican leadership in the Senate and throughout the country for letting this man act like he is acting right now. There is no reason for him to be holding up the transition except for he did say he's a poor loser. But when the security of this nation is at risk, when we continue to lose lives because this man did not step up and do what he should have done, and we have somebody who's ready, willing, and able to do what needs to be done and get started, I can't wait for this man to be out of the office. But the Republican leadership of this country needs to, they need to be whipped. There's just no reason for this type of behavior. The fact that no one seems to be concerned that they get COVID and other people are getting COVID, it's no big thing, no big deal. We talked about this last night. It's like the invasion of the body snatchers. These are not real, these are aliens that have come down to this country and taken over the Republican Party and their lack of leadership. That's all it is, a lack of leadership. And why is
Should be so lucky that if they were aliens.
why is everyone so afraid of him?
Yeah.
What does he have? I mean, what does he have on everybody that they're afraid to stand up to him?
73 million votes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
Debbie, jump in. What was Florida's reaction? What are you thinking? What happened down there when you heard that Biden had gotten the 270?
You know, we were happy, you know, but certainly there was a great element of disappointment because the people in the Democratic Party in my county were working really hard, and we really thought that we had a shot at turning Florida blue. But that didn't happen. But I do want to give some kudos to Florida because they did pass the $15 minimum wage act. So that was a bright spot in the and of course my county, Palm Beach County, did go for Biden, but we weren't able to pull over the state. Personally, I was not, although of course I was happy that Biden won, I was not over the top ecstatic about it because there was a lot left to be desired. I mean, there was not the blue wave that had been projected by some of the media. As I just said, Trump got 73 million votes, and that is very concerning to me. The fact that so people split their ballots, you know, which I don't really understand. You know, the seats that were turned over to Republicans that had been blue, that's also sending a message, and I'm not sure what that message is. But you know, people did split their ballots. They apparently voted for Biden, but then voted for Republicans down the ballot.
Those are the quiet white supremacists.
Yeah.
It's not that we like Black people, but you know, we don't want a fool out there.
Right.
Isn't it?
But it's going to be very difficult for Biden.
It is.
You know, Mitch McConnell is still calling the shots. He's still in charge over in the Senate, although I have to put in a plug for anything that can be done to help elect the two contenders in Georgia for the Senate seats. You know,
Absolutely.
But as it stands now, Biden's hands are going to be tied, just as Obama's were. But it's going to be worse because the polarization is just so more blatant and so more entrenched today than it was back in Obama's presidency. So it doesn't look like it's going to be a bright future as far as I'm concerned. Things are looking pretty bleak, even though, thank you God, Biden was able to pull it out in the end.
What about you, Ann? What's happening in North Florida?
Well, North Florida, the I-10 corridor, of course, as you know, went red, except for the counties of Leon and Gadsden is a predominantly Black county. My sister was the one who let me know that Biden had gotten the 270 because she knew I had stopped watching television altogether. So she called to let me know because I just couldn't take it. So that's how I learned about it. I guess I view this as the glass half full. But I must admit that there's a part of me that's saying there's arsenic in that water. So, you know, you just be careful there. I would like to ditto what Debbie has said. I'm still not at a point where I'm feeling really, really confident and great and wonderful, because I know this is going to be very difficult road to navigate. So many things have popped in my head, particularly with all the craziness that's going on around him trying to still convince everyone that he has won the election. And I'm wondering if some of these machinations are aimed at really further energizing the people in Georgia to get out there and vote against those two Democrat contenders for the Senate. I just don't know, because he's just like a pit bull at this. You know, he's still preaching, I won, you know, they cheated. It's just so many things crop in my head. And I'm not really a conspiracy theory person, but I gotta admit, all kinds of things, just because you know, even with COVID, I'm thinking, well, maybe they're not taking this seriously because they know it disproportionately affects Black and brown people. So that's a way of getting rid of some of us. I don't
That's
know.
okay.
I'm wondering if
this
I'm going
podcast
crazy.
accepts conspiracy theories. That's okay.
But, you know, it just really, and sometimes I feel like I just can't express how I feel. It's like the words aren't there. I just, you know, it's mind boggling. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. All right, how about you, Marcia?
Well, I was on the Zoom call with you all when at least Biden and Harris came out and did their I guess you would call it an acceptance speech. But before that, I had been online looking at a recap. I had been connected with this group by a friend with this group called Bend the Arc. And it's a Jewish community nationwide organization that works on social justice, affordable housing, immigration, and did an incredible amount of work on Get Out the Vote. And so I'd been not watching, but reading online what were the statistics of some of their outreach, how many phone calls they'd made, et cetera. And so I was thinking at the time that I heard the results that there is still a challenge with certain communities, particularly, I think, in particularly the Latino community, in having a coordinated, cohesive, get out the vote effort. It's a community that's really difficult to address because there's not one sort of central body. There's not for the Black community, there's the church and sort of the civil rights movement organizations. With the Latinos, what is there? There's the church, but that church seems to pull people into much more of the conservative side. But anyway, I was still thinking the issues are beyond just the results. The issues are going forward. How will communities stay engaged, become engaged? But I wanted to comment a little bit. I guess it ties into what now and what am I feeling now? Last night, I love PBS, and last night I just happened to be flipping through. And if you guys ever watch, I love watching Steve Reeves' travel program. He does a lot of travel in Europe. He's an expert on travel in Europe. Last night was a replay of a program that was produced in 2019, and he retraced the history of how fascism arose.
That is an excellent program. And if anybody hasn't seen it, you need to go get it.
Watch it, because it is scary. It is absolutely beyond terrifying of where the parallels are with what's going on now. And mind you, it was produced in 2019, so it was not after the election, but people commenting about what Hitler and Mussolini and Franco did to get their word out. And what was that word? And it was consistent lies repeated over and over and over again. And then how did they end up spreading their word beyond just the thousands and thousands of people that they could either cajole, force, or drag to their rallies? It was the emerging presence of radio, because radios came about to be in that era. And the Nazi Party even distributed free radios to people so that more folks could have access to listening to Hitler. But so the comments earlier about where is mainstream media, I don't think mainstream media is a player anymore. I think it's the internet. I mean, how many more people did Trump reach through the internet than cumulatively were watching mainstream or conservative media? And he was reaching out to folks 24/7. So it's just absolutely scary that the perpetual lying has become so easy to disseminate without the ability to critically analyze it and have, realistic journalism, professional journalism, actually do the fact checking. So watch that movie or that documentary. It's scary, absolutely scary.
Yeah. And one of the points that he makes too, he actually was motivated to make that documentary as a result of the 2016 election. but one of the points that he tries to reiterate in there is that those dictators were elected.
Right.
They didn't come to power through a military coup. People voted for them.
And they were elected on many of the same issues that we're facing now. The economy, unfortunately, race issues and white supremacy, and those countries' presence, and currently our presence as a military power, as an economic power in the world. That's what Italy and Spain and Germany were, what their dictators were professing.
So Katrina, you wanna take us to the end of where you were, how you felt when the 270 was reached?
I was nervous all week because I knew, based on so much of the media and things that came out, that there was still a high chance that it would not turn out the election the way that I wanted to. And even when Biden first even got the 270 votes, I was still nervous because I knew there were more shenanigans that was going to be planned from this guy. I agree with Marcia that, and earlier what you said about with the media. See, we didn't get here overnight. There's no Walter Cronkite anymore to give us, that's the news and this is it, that everyone watches, when there was only 4 TV stations. You don't know what anyone's watching. I mean, I work in a hospital where I work with sheriff's deputies, and in their break room, they've got Fox TV on all the time, 24/7. Other people are listening to the internet. You don't know where people are getting their information from. There is no one place. But as Marcia said, that Trump was very good at he refused to communicate through most of those, and mainly was using tweets that you only had to read, 10 words at a time. They didn't even have to be spelled correctly. And he was communicating with millions of people. And it wasn't even till the end that they were trying to even challenge all the lies that had been said. And as you know, if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. And the process that Marcia was talking about, how dictatorships happened, how fascist regimes happen, these are all the steps. I don't think this could have happened back in the 60s when Walter Cronkite and those 2 people were the only people delivering the news. But when now you have it so dispersed, you have no idea where people are getting their information from. And to have there 72 million people now who voted, and that these people who are supposedly to uphold the integrity and the ethics of their party feel that it's safer for them to just be quiet, we're in trouble. I feel another factor that I was really nervous about was Kamala Harris. Now, I know that most people who were going to vote for Biden, they didn't care if he ran with a piece of a tuna fish sandwich, okay? They were going to vote against Trump. But I do believe there are some people who voted against him, against Biden, because they did not want to support Kamala Harris. And that may have been one of the reasons, the late shift in some of the Black male vote. You had Judge Judge Joe Brown, who's out spewing all this stuff about Kamala Harris. You know, you had rappers at the last minute who went to Trump. I do wonder what factor, the Kamala Harris factor, also may have given some more late votes toward Trump. I was afraid if we had the same result that we had last time, that those boarded up businesses may have actually seen some business, because I don't know if people would have been quiet in the way that they were in 2016 when they were just in shock. So I'm glad, you know, we're on this side of the line. And I think, as Ann said earlier, we have a glass half full. But even if we don't get Georgia, there is still so much other stuff that has to be done. The State Department has to be rebuilt. The whole government is just trashed. So even before you're talking about even passing any legislation, all of the things that were done without congressional approval, that was done just in executive orders, all of that, we don't even know the extent of what's been done. So they're going to be plenty busy if they don't pass a single piece of legislation, just trying to see how decimated we are in being able to rebuild us to some reasonable function government, including the U.S. Postal Service.
You know, I just want to go back a second to what Marcia was saying about Hitler and other authoritarian figures back in the 30s. And they never had the benefit of having a network spewing all of their disinformation. I mean, let's face it, you know, Trump used Fox News to get into the White House, and then he used it all through the White House. And then now Fox News seems to want credit for when they call out Trump's lies. Well, what were they doing the other 4 years before the election, right? I mean, they were substantiating and fomenting most of the lies that he spewed anyway. So you don't get credit for that. I'm sorry.
And I think some of the journalists and some others are maybe recognizing maybe they went too far in supporting him, and maybe they didn't really understand the danger that we were in. You know, I read things now and people say, oh, this is a con. All the stuff he's doing is a con. And, but then one could also say, for every coup, you have to have a successful con. So the question is whether this con is going to be successful enough that he actually can have a coup. And as Marcia was saying, a lot of these other people were actually voted for. Now, how they got those votes, how legitimate those votes is, who, whatever, but they were, quote, elected, selected, whatever word you want to use. So if you con enough people for long enough, then you can have not just a successful con, but a successful coup. And I think that is the danger that we are in. And I think that is the danger that maybe some of his previous supporters are recognizing, but not enough to make me feel comfortable.
Okay, well, ladies, that has been wonderful as always. Even in our biweekly meetings, you know, I always leave inspired by having talked to you and listened to you all. So before we wrap up, we're wondering, if you could make one statement to our listeners, one takeaway from this election process, what would that be?
May I go, Michelle?
Yes, definitely.
Pay attention. Those are my words. Pay attention. And that's it.
What's your one takeaway?
That's it. It's pay attention. Do your own work, which is hard to do because there's so much coming at us. But yeah, pay attention.
T?
Don't be lulled.
Don't be lulled, right? Theresa?
Oh, there's so much.
Pick one.
Become engaged in the process. You have to become engaged in the process, and that means doing your research, you know, listening to all of the candidates, not just one, voting in all elections, starting with your school board, going up to your municipal and county and state and US Congress elections, not just the presidential election. You have to become engaged.
Okay, Debbie?
Yeah, I would have to second what Theresa said. The importance of voting at the local level can't be overestimated. That's where your power is. So I know that, people sometimes will only come out for presidential elections or maybe gubernatorial elections. But, those local elections really are important. And so, people need to wake up, and pay attention to what's going on at the local level and be active in playing a role in what's going on there.
Okay, Katrina, last words from you.
I'm going to take part of a private quote. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. So stay vigilant.
Like it. Yeah. Hey, Ray, so, we're not we can't exclude ourselves. What's your takeaway?
Hold people accountable. In other words, hold your politicians accountable. We can't just be happy that Biden and Harris are in office and, Trump is out. Just like the Republicans did not hold Trump accountable, we have to do the opposite. We have to, I'm a progressive, been one all my life, a happy liberal. And if I don't hold my politicians accountable, then I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah, for me, I think that particularly people our generation need to get our voices out there and remember that just because we fought 30 years ago doesn't mean the battle was won. The fight goes on every single day. Each of us has to be a warrior to fight for rights. So I'm hoping that we will all remember that. The young people seem to have picked that up, and we need to be out there encouraging and supporting everyone to fight for rights, to be a warrior in the fight for rights.
Amen.
So, Ray, I can tell already this is going to be 2 episodes.
Yeah, I knew that a half hour ago. But,
Hey, are you saying we're long-winded?
No,
no,
not trying to cast aspersions.
Far be it from me.
But the topic is so important.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
And your voices are so important. And Debbie's comment about wake up, that's perfect. That's why our podcast is called that, right?
She made me want to do my closing, when I scream it,
Yeah, definitely.
Except I can't do the echo now. So, but thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments. It's you ladies inspire me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
for your
you.
work.
Giving us a great opportunity. This is one of the few little silver linings of COVID. And I don't think we would be here today if it weren't for both the challenges of COVID and you all's great expertise.
Yes.
All
Ditto.
right.
Second that.
You guys
Yes.
stay healthy.
Right. Stay safe.
Yeah.
We're recording this right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Don't travel anywhere.
No.
And let's all be safe and healthy and happy until you see us the next time.
Yes.
All right.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy
holidays.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
And this will conclude our post-election discussion on Wake Up with Nubian Tigers Talk, featuring our Tigresses Debbie Jordan, Ann Herring, Marcia Gonzales-Kimbrough, Theresa Brown, and Dr. Katrina Peters. As always, we'd like to thank Mr. Robert Hunter for composing the theme music to our podcast. Be sure to look for our final show of the year, where we will bring back 2 of our guests from our political forum, Mary Nelson and Lawrence Ham, for their take on the 2020 presidential election.
If you enjoyed what you heard today, visit our website, NubianTigersPodcast.com. In addition to the podcast, we also post a resource page for each subject to provide additional sources of information. Follow us on Twitter. Our handle is @NubianTigers, written as one word. We are on YouTube on the Nubian Tigers podcast channel. And do you have a favorite podcast service? Well, we're probably on it. You can subscribe to our podcast on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and Breaker. Just look for Nubian Tigers Talk. Looking forward to sharing some knowledge with you next time.
Wake up, wake up, wake up.